at the same time. And I think we need to make sure that behind our faith, there's also action that we're putting in and working across party lines to protect the thing that all of us care most about, which is the future of our country and our young people. And if we aren't doing that, frankly, I think it's time for young people to step up in the Democratic Party and take it over.
Well, that's a segue. Thank you for that. So you want to be in the leadership of the Democratic Party. What do you bring to the table, and what is it you want to do?
Well, I think what I bring to the table is a new perspective and a fresh face, one of the youngest faces probably after some of the meetings that I've seen, and that's no, you know, that's not, we need people of all ages, to be clear. But I think that if we really want to have a future as a party, we need to realize that we're in a crisis right now when it comes to young voters. Over the 3 years since Parkland, we mobilized young voters at the highest rates in American history. And this year, I thought it was going to be different. I was very worried about young men. I was very worried about younger voters.
You could sense that coming.
Yes. And when I brought these issues up, whether that was inside of the campaign, when I was on the National Finance Committee for the Biden-Harris campaign, as one of the youngest members of it. And I brought up at the DNC my concerns about young men in particular. I was given a huge amount of vitriol back saying, why are you asking about this? Why do you care about this? When I brought up concerns about young men publicly, I got texts from 40-plus-year-old consultants telling me, saying, here you go, saying this, I can't even say it on the air, dumb stuff once again. And then all of a sudden, we're shocked when we lose this. But the thing that bothers me most is the lack of accountability. I feel like the Democratic Party, when we went out there and we're talking about how Donald Trump was such a threat to democracy, how many people were saying he was a fascist and all these other things, you can say that. But if you lose an election to somebody like that, it's unacceptable to go out there and just say, you know what, guys, we tried our best. And now I'm going to go off and get my consulting job at Uber or whatever else it might be. We need people that actually take accountability. And that's what I'm here to do. When I met with President Biden 15 or so months ago, one-on-one, and he asked me how to get young voters, what I wish I said to him was that he needed to drop out. Now, I probably would have got kicked out of that meeting, to be clear, but at least I would have told him.
Somebody needed to say it, maybe.
At least I would have told him what he needed to hear instead of what he wanted to hear. That's what I want to bring to the DNC, is somebody who is there not as a paid consultant, but somebody who's there to win, that doesn't have a loser's mentality and works to live, actively chooses to live in an uncomfortable reality instead of a comfortable delusion where we continuously lose.
All right, well, David Hogg, good luck to you with the Democratic National Party. We'll be covering that going forward. And thank you once again for being here and offering your understanding of this, this mass shooting situation in Wisconsin. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, we're going to talk to an eyewitness who saw police helping the students get away from that shooting in Madison. Be right back.
Delicious flavors worth fanning over. They're great.
Vehicle breakdowns are costly.
It started making some really weird noises.
If your check engine light comes on tomorrow, the repair could easily cost thousands.
Here's that transmission.
But with Endurance, you could never pay out of pocket for a costly repair again.
They covered a $14,000 engine replacement.
$1,400. Endurance paid it.
Who's going to pay for your next car repair? You or Endurance?
Call right now to get $300 off any plan. Call now.
I've been using this product called Muesli, and I've been telling everybody about it because it's been life-changing to me.
I go into a lot of things thinking it's not going to work, and I thought Muesli would be the same thing, but it wasn't.
People are like, what are you doing? Because my skin looks completely different than it did. I feel like people can see me for me because of how confident I feel.
Find the real you again. Go to muesli.com/TV.
I think we need a bigger yard.
With our credit? This yard's fine. Go long.
Too long. But didn't I hear I found you?
Yeah. Look, Credit Karma can show us how to improve our credit for free. Then we can get a place with a bigger yard.
You hear that, Nora?
Yay.
From free credit scores to home loans and everything in between, Intuit Credit Karma. Download the app today.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
We are part of an operation.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate. Militants came in from different directions. Nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag...
Not a carry in it.
How important it made to USA.
Great work. Hi. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Ismail? David.
I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast. You're watching America's #1 streaming news, ABC News Live. Breaking news, exclusives, live reporting across the globe. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
We are following that breaking news today out of Madison, Wisconsin, where 2 people are dead, plus the shooter, and 6 more people are injured after a shooting at a Christian school, Abundant Life Christian School there in Madison. I want to bring in John Diaz de Leon, an eyewitness. He lives across the street from the school. John, thank you for being with us. Tell me what you saw earlier today.
Well, I heard first police cars after police cars after police cars, and they sounded close. So I went on the internet and I looked up the fire department scanner, and I heard that they were doing a triage area at the city church, and that there was one person who was DOA. So then I walked down to the sidewalk in front of the school and the church, and I never saw so many police cars in my life, just blue and red lights lining the school, lining the street, fire department, paramedics, everybody was there. It's amazing how quick they got there. Yeah. And I saw some officers with long guns headed into the school. I think everything was pretty much done by then, but they had a K-9 unit. And slowly, as I stood on the sidewalk across from the school, you could see students being led out of the school. Some of the older students were running across the parking lot to the church sanctuary. And then later on, very slowly, in a more orderly fashion, the younger students holding hands were led out to go across the parking lots to the sanctuary. Then you saw a couple of the paramedic ambulances slowly back up and leave, and I assume they were taking the injured to the hospital.
John, thank you for that description. And I want to ask you, you must have known right away what was going on. And how did you react? And what can you tell us about that school and the surrounding community where you live?
Well, it's a quiet neighborhood. It's a church school of somewhere around 350 kids. The students at the school are from the church, city church, but they also come from many other churches in the city of Madison. So it's a mixture of students, and they accept just any students now through the voucher program. So it's a mixture of students from the city of Madison that want a Christian education. And the neighborhood's quiet. I mean, it's just it's the last place on earth you would ever expect a shooting.
And that is typical in so many ways of these events. John Diaz de Leon of Madison, Wisconsin, thank you for coming on and telling us what you saw. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, the news doesn't stop, and you can find us anywhere you stream live news. If you're on the go, we're on the ABC News app, abcnews.com as well. I'm Terry Moran. Thank you for streaming with us. There's more news coming up next.
Nothing makes a gathering great like Eggland's best eggs. They're just so delicious. With better nutrition, too. For us, it's eggs any style, as long as they're the best. Eggland's best.
Oh, man, nice place. Man, is it cold in here?
Yeah, our heat is out.
Oh, man, I feel ya. Mine's been out for weeks.
Weeks?
Anyway, what are we fixing?
Your home's too important to trust to just anyone. With more than 100 years in business and thousands of 5-star reviews, you can trust Deljo Heating and Cooling to fix it right and for a fair price. That's the Deljo difference. Call today and get the $4,000 off of qualifying systems. Visit DeljoHeating.com.
Switch to Square and join over 4 million businesses worldwide. More than a point of sale, Square keeps you ready for any restaurant rush. And with Square, there are no hidden fees ever. At Square, get 24/7 support to help keep lines moving. And with Square Banking, get a loan quickly for everything from small repairs to the biggest dreams. Gain time and peace of mind with restaurant tools that bring everything together. Switch to Square today. Visit square.com to get started.
I think we need a bigger yard.
With our credit? This yard's fine. Go long.
Too long. But didn't I hear I found you?
Yeah. Look, Credit Karma can show us how to improve our credit for free. Then we can get a place with a bigger yard.
You hear that, Nora?
Yay.
From free credit scores to home loans and everything in between, Intuit Credit Karma. Download the app today.
Good afternoon, I'm Terry Morano. We have breaking news at this hour. We're tracking that shooting out of Madison, Wisconsin. At least 2 people are dead, plus a juvenile gunman, after a shooting at Abundant Life Christian School. At least 6 others were injured during the shooting, and they were transported to nearby hospitals. UW Health confirmed some of those injured have been transported to its center, and they say areas are set up for patient families there as well. Authorities are still urging people to avoid the area of the school, but they believe there is no ongoing threat at this time. Police say the priority continues to be reuniting students with their parents.
As you can see, we have a unification center that was immediately set up where parents and guardians and loved ones and grandparents wanted to get information about their loved ones, and we wanted to make sure that they were unified immediately. So we were doing more than one thing at one time. We're still going through, collecting evidence, collecting information, making sure that our community is safe from what is a sad day for our community and for our country.
So let's bring in ABC's Jack Date along with former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Jack, first to you. Police say the suspect used a handgun, that he's a juvenile. What more are we learning at this hour?
Well, right now, police say that they believe this juvenile was a student at some point at this school, and they're going to continue to piece together, try to figure out how this juvenile was able to access a firearm and bring it to this school. So ATF is on the scene there. They'll almost certainly conduct an urgent trace of that weapon to find out where it was purchased, and then follow leads through there to find out how it got into his hands, or her hands, rather. Still a lot unknown about the student. Police are doing a lot of notifications to families of the victims in the shooting. They expect to have more on this in a briefing at 3:30.
Okay, Jack, thanks very much. Brad, one of the things that Jack raised, why, right? That's always the question. How do you go about tracking the suspect and discovering what the root causes of something like this are, or sometimes maybe you can't?
Well, I'll be surprised if you can't. Only because think about what this kid has just done, Terry. It is something that's been on his mind, I suspect, day and night for quite a while. And even though he's young and maybe doesn't completely understand the ramifications of doing something like this, he still believes in his mind it's the right. So comes out in people that are around us and young.
We'll track that as it continues along with the other developments in this shooting today. Jack Date, Brad Garrett, thank you very much. President-elect Donald Trump spoke earlier today at Mar-a-Lago in a wide-ranging press conference. He announced a new $100 billion investment in the United States by SoftBank. That's a Japanese company focused on emerging technologies like AI.
I'm thrilled to announce that SoftBank will be investing $100 billion in America, creating 100,000 American jobs at a minimum. And he's doing this because he feels very optimistic about our country since the election. And many other people are also coming in with tremendous amounts of money.
Well, during a long back and forth with the press, Trump took questions from reporters And he touched on a wide range of topics, including Syria, the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, and vaccine mandates. Senior White House correspondent Selena Wang is in West Palm Beach with the latest.
Hey, Terry, for the first time since the election, President-elect Donald Trump held a press conference. He took our questions for about an hour at his residence in Mar-a-Lago. He answered a wide range of questions from foreign policy to the economy to vaccines. I asked the president-elect about school vaccine mandates and about the polio vaccine. This comes as we're learning that RFK Jr.'s personal attorney had in the past lobbied the FDA to revoke the polio vaccine. Take a listen to what the president-elect told me. Thanks, President Trump. What about the polio vaccine?
Well, I'm a big believer in it, and I think everything should be looked at, but I'm a big believer in the polio vaccine, the Salk vaccine.
Do you think schools should mandate vaccines? Do you think schools should mandate vaccines?
I don't like mandates. I'm not a big mandate person.
All 50 states currently have some form of vaccine mandates for students to attend public schools. There have been concerns that if RFK Jr. is confirmed as a head of Health and Human Services, that he could discourage local school districts from requiring vaccinations. During the press conference, Donald Trump also answered questions about foreign policy as well. I asked him if he would ask Putin to hand over Assad. The president-elect paused for a long time and told me that he hadn't thought about it. He also said that he believes the government knows about these New Jersey drone sightings. He said that the government knows that the, quote, military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went, and for some reason, they don't want to comment. But when I asked the president-elect whether he had received any intelligence briefing about the drone sightings in New Jersey, the president-elect said no comment. He also told me that he didn't know whether or not China's Xi Jinping would come to the inauguration. This is after we've already reported that he extended an invitation to Chinese leader Xi Jinping to attend, something that is quite unprecedented. The president-elect said that if he comes, he would love to have him. Terry?
All right, Selena Wang there in West Palm, Florida. Thanks very much. Well, meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump's pick to run the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he is on Capitol Hill today. He's kicking off a marathon week of meetings with over 24 senators. ABC's Alex Boucher is on Capitol Hill. Been following all this for us. Joins us now for more. Alex, are Republican senators, any of them really, hesitant to confirm RFK Jr.? There's some controversy around him. Do you get the sense there that there are potential no votes, that he's got to shore up support in his own party?
Well, there certainly were questions, Terry. We heard that from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell late last week when he kind of telegraphed, without calling Robert F. Kennedy by name, but saying that anyone who looks to undermine the public confidence in proven cures is not just uninformed, it's dangerous. He's referring to questions about Kennedy basically questioning vaccine effectiveness, specifically whenever it comes to polio. And keep in mind that Mitch McConnell himself had polio as a child. He still suffers with some of the effects of that today. And so we've seen the president-elect and certainly members of his transition staff try to pave the road for RFK Jr. today in this press conference. It had a wide range of topics. The president-elect talking about how he himself believed in the polio vaccine and that it was not going to go away if RFK is confirmed. We also had a member of the transition team who said that RFK Jr. does believe in the polio vaccine. And so, you know, this is an attempt by this incoming administration to kind of assuage some of these concerns that he might hear from lawmakers. But again, today, he's got 4 meetings with different senators set to kick off within the hour. But that is likely going to be one of the questions that he's asked.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Alex, because the vaccine hesitancy, vaccine reluctance, anti-vaccine movement in this country has been building, you know, really since that fraudulent paper was published by Andrew Wakefield back in the 1990s. And now its moment of arrival has come, right? They're going to have somebody who shares many of their views. And it feels to me, from what you're describing, that the Republican senators and the but the Republican senators may be willing to confirm someone who is, as he himself has said, a vaccine skeptic.
Well, I think also there's an understanding that for many Republicans that RFK Jr. might just fall in line with the ideologies of the president-elect. And if Trump himself is saying that the polio vaccine isn't going anywhere, then that might be just good enough for them on that confirmation, right? But as you mentioned, the reason that these questions are coming up to begin with is that RFK Jr.'s lawyer, Aaron Siri, is a noted vaccine skeptic. In fact, as Selena had pointed out back in 2022, he lobbied for the FDA to revoke the approval of the polio vaccine. And so now there are questions about that association because Siri is an advisor for RFK Jr. But again, the incoming administration, that transition team, really trying to double down, saying that they believe in the polio vaccine, that RFK Jr. believes in the polio vaccine. We heard it from the president-elect today. Also, RFK saying that he himself is fully vaxxed, save for that COVID-19 vaccine, hoping that assuages some of these concerns.
All right, it's amazing we're having a debate on whether or not we believe in the polio vaccine, but here we are. Alex Brachet on Capitol Hill, thanks very much. Well, communities across the Northeast remain on edge amid the slew of apparent drone sightings. Lawmakers and local leaders in New Jersey and other states, they're pressuring the federal government for more answers as the Biden administration continues to insist it has, quote, no evidence to suggest any threat to national security or foreign involvement. But while they still don't know where these drones are coming from or who is responsible, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says the federal government is taking action to help local law enforcement after these drone sightings. Here's what he said on ABC's This Week.
There are thousands of drones flown every day in the United States. Recreational drones, commercial drones. That is the reality. And in September of 2023, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, changed the rules so that drones could fly at night. And that may be one of the reasons why now people are seeing more drones than they did before. But I want to assure the American public that we are on it.
All right, that's what we're hearing from many parts of the federal government. Let's bring in our senior Pentagon reporter, Louis Martinez, for more. Louis, I was on this call over the weekend, I'm sure you were as well, where they had the Pentagon and FAA and DHS and the White House, everybody telling us not to worry. Federal government seems pretty convinced there is no threat here. So why don't they just flat out say that?
Well, they've been trying to, Terry. They've been trying to say that we take your concerns very, very seriously. We understand that you are seeing drones. We also understand that probably what you think is a drone may be a plane. But one of the things that they're trying to say is, look, we have surged equipment. Well, we've been told by a U.S. official that infrared cameras, that detection equipment for drones has been sent to the New Jersey area, and that what they're seeing, they are drones. But the question is, it is okay to fly drones in the United States within limits, and it's, as Mayorkas just said there, it's okay to fly them at night. The disconnect, I think, Terry, is this, is that they are trying to prove a negative because people are concerned because they're not used to this. And I think as this becomes more and more well-known, people are going to be looking up in the sky and they're going to see something and they're going to report it. But the answers that the government is providing them is just not enough, and they want to see more action.
That is very well put, Louis. There's no question that proving a negative is tough. In fact, the difficulty of proving a negative is a big story of our times with all the kinds of stories that are out there. Still, a lot of people are on edge, and local officials are under increasing pressure. They want more information. So is there a disconnect, really? Our local government officials and our federal government, shouldn't they have, especially on issues of security like this, shouldn't they be much more in sync? What do you think?
Well, I think that's part of it, Terry. I think these local officials want to seem responsive. They want to know that they are representing the interests of their communities, and their communities apparently are seeing these objects up in the sky. Now, are they just noticing them for the first time, or is this all of a sudden that we're seeing this surge that's taking place over the last couple of weeks? That's a real question to be asked. The federal government, their concern about national security and about flight safety is whether they are flying through restricted airspace. There just isn't that much restricted airspace in the state of New Jersey. Yes, there are 2 military bases. On that call that you and I were on this weekend, they said, yes, there have been overflights by drones on that naval base and on the Army base, but they dealt with it. And I think that's part of the disconnect right here.
All right, Louis Martinez, thanks very much for being at the Pentagon, as always, on this story. And for more, let's bring in Speaker Craig Coughlin of the New Jersey State Assembly. Assemblyman Coughlin, New Jersey State officials, thank you for being with us. First of all, let me thank you for that. This is right in where you live. You know, a lot of issues sometimes don't hit your backyard, but this one does. I guess they've been briefed by Homeland Security. Have you had that briefing? What have you been hearing?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Terry. I appreciate being here. What we have heard is a lot of discussion about how we don't have anything to worry about, but no real answers that can really help put people's minds at rest. It's hard to have a conversation in New Jersey these days with anybody and not talk about the drone issue. It is something that is at the top of the minds of New Jerseyans and something that I think we need real clear answers about. And candidly, I think we're all frustrated. I know the governor is, I am, my colleagues are, at the lack of a clear answer about what's going on. You can't tell us we don't have anything to worry about and then tell us we don't know what they are. I mean, those two things are not consistent. And so that's what we're seeking. We're seeking some real answers about what's going on.
That's for sure. Those are inconsistent things to say. Don't worry about anything, even though we don't exactly understand.
We don't know what the heck it is, but don't worry about it.
So, I mean, that doesn't add up. Look, do you get the sense that they don't know actually the full story, and that would be concerning, or that this is some kind of bad PR strategy of respecting the concerns of your constituents, which they're doing so much that it makes them sound foolish?
And at the risk of being redundant, I actually don't know. It could be any number of things, right? One of the things that there are all sorts of wild theories. And by the way, that's another reason to make sure people have clear answers so that there aren't wild theories being circulated on internet and other places. The other theory is that, well, perhaps the government knows exactly what it is and it's some sort of a training exercise or things like that, and they're just not telling us because they don't want to create public panic. Well, if the goal was to prevent public panic, there's been an epic failure. But the truth is, if it is, then at least say that. You know, I heard your colleague talking about how we may not be used to things in the air. The truth of the matter is I live in the central part of the state, and I live not far from Newark Airport, and between Newark and Kennedy and JFK, three of the busiest airports in the world, we're really used to air traffic over our heads. And so, you know, there is something significantly different that is causing people to be a part of it. We're hearing from people in parts of the state that routinely don't have that same kind of air traffic, you know, in the northwest part of the state and the southern parts of the state. So it's all over, and it's something that we would really benefit from having a very clear sense of what they are. If they are drones that are legally there, then tell us. We've discovered that they're there, and here's where they belong to, and thing is okay. Then we can start to move forward.
Yeah, well, I hope you get some of those answers, Assemblyman, and come back on and share them with us. Appreciate it.
I will.
Assemblyman
I'll be delighted to come back to say, guess what, everybody? They're safe and sound. They're commercial drones. They're whatever it is. But what we need some clear answers, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the first thing you want to tell your constituents and the others who you're representing in New Jersey. All right.
Our job is to make sure the public safety is protected, and that's fundamental, and we need to go from there.
All right. Well, I hope it does work out, and I trust it will. Assemblyman Craig Coughlin, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, coming up, the woman convicted of killing superstar Selena is eligible for parole in a few months. The district attorney who prosecuted her joins me next to talk about why interest in this case still persists 30 years later.
When I was younger, my calling was to play football. But as I grew older, I realized life isn't about knocking people down. It's about lifting them up. At Ram, our calling is to build game-changing trucks. So when you find your calling, nothing can stop you from answering it.
Y'all see this? Patrick Mahomes is saying goodbye. People was tripping.
Where are you going?
He was actually saying goodbye to his old phone.
I'm switching to the amazing new iPhone 16 Pro at T-Mobile.
It's the first iPhone built for Apple Intelligence. That's like peanut butter on jelly on gold. Get 4 iPhone 16 Pro on us. Plus 4 lines for $25. And save on every plan versus the other big guys. What a deal. That's a lot if you ask me. If y'all giving it away too fast, T-Mobile, slow down.
Welcome to the Credit Karmaverse, a place where financial progress can happen at the speed of delight. Here we help you achieve your money goals fast, like improving your credit scores in a matter of days fast, so you don't have to wait around to see your hard work pay off. Oh, well done. Simply scan your screen to experience Intuit Credit Karma for yourself.
I avoided the mirror. I felt alone for a long time.
I remember going home and praying for it to go away, not thinking it was something wrong with me.
I go into a lot of things thinking it's not going to work, and I thought Muesli would be the same thing, but it actually worked.
More than 700,000 patients have regained their confidence with Muesli's prescription treatments.
When you're hopeless and then you find other women who are in the same boat as you, you suddenly feel okay. We're going to get out of it together. That's what Muesli did for me.
Welcome back. Many fans of the late singer Selena Quintanilla are wondering if her killer could realistically be released. The former president of the singer's fan club was convicted of shooting and killing Selena 3 decades ago. Now Yolanda Saldivar has started the parole process, sparking outrage, putting the case back into the spotlight. The district attorney who prosecuted the case, Carlos Valdez, joins us now. Thank you so much for being here. This is something that is coming up as part of the system. You said this was a simple case of cold-blooded murder when you prosecuted it. Walk us through the parole process for people who are concerned about it and whether they should be concerned. Do you think this is a possibility that she could get paroled?
Good afternoon. There's always a possibility that parole could be granted. When I prosecuted this case 30 years ago, it was 30 years ago, I thought in 5 years, all this will be forgotten and it'll be in the dustbin of history. And I could never imagine that 30 years later, we'd still be talking about this. There's always a possibility of parole being granted. And 30 years in prison presents an opportunity for a person to find some type of rehabilitation, or at least to show some remorse, contrition, about the actions that resulted in her being in prison. And I can tell you that based on what I've seen so far, based on the evidence, based on the interviews that Ms. Saldivar has given up to now, I have not seen any indication that she has changed in any way whatsoever. So it's still up to the parole board. The process, it's not really a hearing. Here in Texas, it's a process that starts several months before the eligible date, and they collect evidence, they collect statements, they collect any other information that they think is appropriate, put it all together, and then decide whether or not to grant parole. And that's what's happening right now. And there's a lot of interest in this case. I still am amazed by how much interest 30 years later. And I think it has a lot to do with what Selena meant to our community.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And what she meant to music in general. She was, for so many of us not a member of the Hispanic community, she was kind of a pioneer in that kind of sound, right? I do want to play for you. Yes, exactly. So is there any way that her fans, Selena's fans, can participate in this process? I mean, I don't know what the law is around that, but this is an artist who touched so many people. Could they write letters, make calls? What do you think?
Yes, there are different ways that they can participate. And one of them is they can request an opportunity to be heard if they have some evidence. If it's something about we just don't want her to be released, well, that's important. But what really is important is any evidence of something Yolanda has done while she's been incarcerated, or any type of evidence that the parole board can consider. If they want an opportunity for the parole board to listen to that, they'll be given an opportunity. They can also start some type of petition that can be presented to the parole board. there's a way that they can communicate with the Board of Pardons and Paroles by going on their website, and they've got a place where the public can participate. So there are ways for people to participate. Of course, the prosecutorial authorities, I'm no longer the district attorney, but the present district attorney has a chance to have some input. And of course, the family members also have an opportunity.
Well, that is very helpful for all the millions of people who care about this story so much. Carlos Valdez, the former district attorney who prosecuted Selena Quintanilla's murderer. Thank you so much for your time. As this process goes forward, perhaps we'll come back to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Well, coming up, from the High Court to the Great White Way, details on Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's Broadway debut.
The best moments deserve the best eggs, especially when they're Eggland's Best. It tastes so deliciously fresh, with better nutrition too. For us, it's eggs any style, as long as they're the best. Eggland's Best.
Y'all see this? Patrick Mahomes is saying goodbye. People was tripping.
Where are you going?
He was actually saying goodbye to his old phone.
I'm switching to the amazing new iPhone 16 Pro at T-Mobile.
It's the first iPhone built for Apple Intelligence. That's like peanut butter on jelly on gold. Get 4 iPhone 16 Pro on us, plus 4 lines for $25. And save on every plan versus the other big guys. What a deal. That's a lot if you ask me. If y'all giving it away too fast, T-Mobile, slow down.
Oh, man, nice place. Man, is it cold in here?
Yeah, our heat is out.
Oh, man, I feel ya. Mine's been out for weeks. Weeks? Anyway, what are we fixing?
Your home's too important to trust to just anyone. With more than 100 years in business and thousands of 5-star reviews, you can trust Deljo Heating and Cooling to fix it right and for a fair price. That's the Deljo difference. Call today and get the $4,000 off of qualifying systems. Visit DeljoHeating.com.
Oh, man, nice place. Man, is it cold in here?
Yeah, our heat is out.
Oh, man, I feel ya. Mine's been out for weeks. Weeks? Anyway, what are we fixing?
Your home's too important to trust to just anyone. With more than 100 years in business and thousands of 5-star reviews, you can trust Deljo Heating and Cooling to fix it right and for a fair price. That's the Deljo difference. Call today and get the $4,000 off of qualifying systems. Visit DeljoHeating.com.
Reporting from Rockland County, New York, I'm Ginger Z. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
And thanks for streaming with us. We want to leave you today with this. It's a dream come true for Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. She made her Broadway debut over the weekend. Justice Jackson joined the cast of the musical & Juliet for one night only, showing off her acting chops. She even sang a little bit in a walk-on role in this popular show. The performance fulfills her lifelong goal to be the first black female Supreme Court justice to appear on a Broadway stage. Ah, good for her. Having some fun? The news never stops. You can find us anywhere you stream news live. And if you're on the go, we're on the ABC News app and abcnews.com as well. I'm Terry Moran. Thanks for streaming with us. There's more news coming up next.
Busy with your crew but need a checkup? We're here for that.
Oh, my.
Sidelined with shoulder pain? We're here for that. Kid spikes a fever at 3 a.m.? We're here for that too. Because at Advocate Healthcare, it's simple to get primary care that fits your life. Anytime and anywhere you need it. Check out all our virtual options online. Big or small, we're here for it all.
Holiday vibes, twinkling lights, and, oh, you've had one too many drinks. Or was it the hit? A ride is just a tap away, but maybe you could drive? What's the move? Play it cool, get a sober ride. Risk ruining the holidays or your life forever. level past.
Thanks for the ride, bro. You are
Drive sober or get pulled over. Can you keep making the right moves? Head to itsnotagameillinois.com/arcade to test your skills.
Let's get this done.
Being a cop is stressful. Every year on the job is different. You never really stop being a rookie.
Work smarter, not harder.
Hey, good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
You don't just see it, you feel it.
I'm in.
I'm in. I'm in too. I am in. I'm in.
I'm in too.
I'll be here.
It's lunchtime in America, so what are we serving up?
Well, how about everything you need to know?
GMA 3, what you need to know. A third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us, afternoons.
For everything you need to know.
I love that.
Me too.
Good afternoon, I'm Terry Morano. We have breaking news at this hour. We're tracking that shooting out of Madison, Wisconsin. At least 2 people are dead, plus a juvenile gunman, after a shooting at Abundant Life Christian School. At least 6 others were injured during the shooting, and they were transported to nearby hospitals. UW Health confirmed some of those injured have been transported to its center, and they say areas are set up for patient families there as well. Authorities are still urging people to avoid the area of the school, but they believe there is no ongoing threat at this time. Police say the priority continues to be reuniting students with their parents.
As you can see, we have a unification center that was immediately set up where parents and guardians and loved ones and grandparents wanted to get information about their loved ones, and we wanted to make sure that they were unified immediately. So we were doing more than one thing at one time. We're still going through, collecting evidence, collecting information, making sure that our community is safe from what is a sad day for our community and for our country.
So let's bring in ABC's Jack Date along with former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Jack, first to you. Police say the suspect used a handgun, that he's a juvenile. What more are we learning at this hour?
Well, right now, police say that they believe this juvenile was a student at some point at this school, and they're going to continue to piece together, try to figure out how this juvenile was able to access a firearm and bring it to this school. So ATF is on the scene there. They'll almost certainly conduct an urgent trace of that weapon to find out where it was purchased, and then follow leads through there to find out how it got into his hands, or her hands, rather. Still a lot unknown about the student. Police are doing a lot of notifications to families of the victims in the shooting. They expect to have more on this in a briefing at 3:30.
Okay, Jack, thanks very much. Brad, one of the things that Jack raised, why, right? That's always the question. How do you go about tracking the suspect and discovering what the root causes of something like this are, or sometimes maybe you can't?
Well, I'll be surprised if you can't. Only because think about what this kid has just done, Terry. It is something that's been on his mind, I suspect, day and night for quite a while. And even though he's young and maybe doesn't completely understand the ramifications of doing something like this, he still believes in his mind it's the right thing to do for him. And so, as a result, anything that any of us are obsessed about or think about all the time come out in other ways. It comes out through a change in behavior, the way we dress, the color of our hair. But more importantly, it also comes out in people that are around us. And young kids in particular say things to other kids. And so I'll be surprised if there isn't information about him, assuming he's a recent student.
Well, we'll track that as it continues along with the other developments in this shooting today. Jack Date, Brad Garrett, thank you very much. President-elect Donald Trump spoke earlier today at Mar-a-Lago in a wide-ranging press conference. He announced a new $100 billion investment in the United States by SoftBank. That's a Japanese company focused on emerging technologies like AI.
I'm thrilled to announce that SoftBank will be investing $100 billion in America, creating 100,000 American jobs at a minimum. And he's doing this because he feels very optimistic about our country since the election. And many other people are also coming in with tremendous amounts of money.
Well, during a long back and forth with the press, Trump took questions from reporters, and he touched on a wide range of topics, including Syria, the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, and vaccine mandates. Senior White House correspondent Selena Wang is in West Palm Beach with the latest.
Hey, Terry, for the first time since the election, President-elect Donald Trump held a press conference. He took our questions for about an hour at his residence in Mar-a-Lago. He answered a wide range of questions from foreign policy to the economy to vaccines. I asked the president-elect about school vaccine mandates and about the polio vaccine. This comes as we're learning that RFK Jr.'s personal attorney had in the past lobbied the FDA to revoke the polio vaccine. Take a listen to what the president-elect told me.
Thanks, President Trump. What about the polio vaccine?
Well, I'm a big believer in it, and I think everything should be looked at, but I'm a big believer in the polio vaccine, the Salk vaccine.
Do you think schools should mandate vaccines? Do you think schools should mandate vaccines?
I don't like mandates. I'm not a big mandate person.
All 50 states currently have some form of vaccine mandates for students to attend public schools. There have been concerns that if RFK Jr. is confirmed as a head of Health and Human Services, that he could discourage local school districts from requiring vaccinations. During the press conference, Donald Trump also answered questions about foreign policy as well. I asked him if he would ask Putin to hand over Assad. The president-elect paused for a long time and told me that he hadn't thought about it. He also said that he believes the government knows about these New Jersey drone sightings. He said that the government knows that the, quote, military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went, and for some reason, they don't want to comment. But when I asked the president-elect whether he had received any intelligence briefing about the drone sightings in New Jersey, the president-elect said no comment. He also told me that he didn't know whether or not China's Xi Jinping would come to the inauguration. This is after we've already reported that he extended an invitation to Chinese leader Xi Jinping to attend, something that is quite unprecedented. The president-elect said that if he comes, he would love to have him. Terry?
All right, Selena Wang there in West Palm, Florida. Thanks very much. Well, meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump's pick to run the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he is on Capitol Hill today. He's kicking off a marathon week of meetings with over 24 senators. ABC's Alex Brochet is on Capitol Hill. Been following all this for us. Joins us now for more. Alex, are Republican senators, any of them really, hesitant to confirm RFK Jr.? There's some controversy around him. Do you get the sense there that there are potential no votes, that he's got to shore up support in his own party?
Well, there's
We turn now to breaking news in Madison, Wisconsin. Police, they're holding a press conference to provide new information on that deadly school shooting in Madison after 2 people, including the shooter, are reported dead. As of now, at least 6 people are reported to be injured as well. Let's listen in.
Information that we're not going to release because it's still an ever-evolving situation. You'll hear from some of our representatives from our city and from our county. And behind me are a lot of people who came together today to make sure that the day ended well and that everyone else was safe. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and start my remarks. Today truly is a sad day for Madison and for our country. It is a day that I believe will live in our collective minds for a very, very long time. Here are the details. Today at 10:57 a.m., our team was called to the Abundant Life Christian School in reference to an active shooter. We know that 3 people are dead, including the suspect shooter. We know that the suspect shooter was a teenage student who attended the school. At this time, we're not releasing the age or gender of the student or any other identifying remarks about the student. 2 other people have died that died were a teacher and a teenage student. 6 other people were injured. 2 students are now in critical condition in the hospital, and these injuries are considered life-threatening injuries. 4 students are also at other area hospitals with non-life-threatening injuries. But these are just the physical injuries that we know about. We know that this was the middle of the day, of a school day, and so there will be other injuries that we'll have to face for a very, very long time. And we're going to do everything we can as a community to heal those injuries as well. Many of you have asked me about the why of this. Why did this happen? What do we know? What was the motivation? I do not know. But I will tell you this, our detectives are working hard in the investigative process to find out as many answers as we can so that we can further prevent these things from happening, not only in this community, but in other communities around our country. I think we can all agree that enough is enough, and we have to come together to do everything we can to support our students, to prevent press conferences like these from happening again and again and again. The school building itself is clear. We have cleared the school. There's no other threats or danger to the community. We're in the process now of what we call reunification. And what that simply means is making sure that every student that was in the school is present and accounted for and returned to their loved ones. This usually takes a while, but we have practiced, unfortunately, and practice, and that's why we're able to reunify students with their parents within hours of a school shooting. The reunification is taking place at the Dean Clinic on Stoughton Road, and I certainly thank them for their help. Again, we need our public to find an alternate route. If that is your normal way home as we get closer to the end of the day, please be patient or find another route home. We're currently processing the scene. We're interviewing those who may have been witnesses, and we're obtaining search warrants to get additional information. And lastly, I want to just say thank you to everyone who's standing behind me, the organizations and agencies that they represent, the men and women of the Madison Police Department and Dane County Sheriff's Office who selflessly ran into a building not knowing what they were going to encounter. Many of you know this about me, but I started my professional career, if you will, as a public school teacher back in 1997. And I taught public school for 4 years. It was one of the greatest joys of my life before becoming a police officer. And I can tell you what a special place our schools are. With that being said, we owe it to our community to do everything possible to ensure that it's not only a special place, but a safe place as well. And we're going to continue to do that. So we ask for your patience as information is coming in. We will do the best that we can to bring you accurate and timely information, but we want to make sure that our public knows that we're working extremely hard on this particular incident. There are a lot of people involved, and certainly we're going to come together as a community. I'd like to bring up at this time Police Fire Chief Chris Carver.
Thank you, Chief Barnes. Before I start, the only thing I can say is this is not a place that any fire chief or any one of us would ever want to be. And I can't believe I'm standing here today talking about this incident. The fire department is a part of this community, much like all of the folks standing up here with me today. Our hearts are with and our arms are around everybody impacted today and everybody within our community. With that, I won't repeat the details shared by Chief Barnes, but I will share with you the fire department activity for today. Much like Chief Barnes mentioned, at 10:57, we were also dispatched with Engine 5 and Medic 5 to the same location Throughout the course of the incident, we responded with 5 engine companies, 4 ladder companies, 15 ambulances. I would like to take a moment and share our gratitude for our county partners throughout a multitude of EMS and fire agencies that joined us in the response today. We also had 11 off-duty chief officers that came in on this response. It was a tremendous response from the fire department. We transported 4 patients to St. Mary's. We transported 3 patients to the University of Wisconsin hospitals. On the arrival of our crews, I can say my gratitude to our membership for what they did and their selfless actions today. It's hard for me to place into words what they ran into as well. They did that immediately. They did that selflessly. And within a course of 15 minutes, from the first transport to the last transport, all the patients were on their way to the hospital. So to our membership within the Madison Fire Department and within all the emergency services, my gratitude, my recognition of the work that goes into this, the training that went into this, that again, we had hoped we would never have to put into practice. One more time on behalf of the Madison Fire Department, our hearts are with you, our arms are around you, and we will be with you throughout the duration of this. So at this point, I'll step aside, turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Chiefs, both of you. This is an incredibly sad day for our community. As you've heard, there is no danger to the community at this time, but our entire community has been impacted by this tragic incident. On behalf of the Common Council and the City of Madison staff, I want to offer our heartfelt condolences to the victims and families and to the whole Abundant Life community. Our focus now is on supporting them and supporting the victims and their families. And we will continue to do that through the coming days and weeks. I also want to thank our first responders, the police, fire, the medical staff, for their quick action and their life-saving efforts. As you've heard already, this is a whole of government response. It is not just police and fire. It is not just City of Madison. We have folks from all around the county. We have folks from multiple agencies engaged in both the initial immediate response and the ongoing support, and will be engaged for days and weeks to come. I also want to thank the White House and the governor and others in the federal government and state government for reaching out to offer their support and help. We will be drawing on resources as needed going forward. But the most important thing right now is to make sure that we are centering the victims and their families, and that we are doing whatever we can to support them and to help them heal, and to lift our entire community up through this difficult incident. I am on record that I think we need to do better in our country and our community to prevent gun violence. And I hoped that this day would never come in Madison. It is not something that any mayor, any fire chief, any police chief, any person in public office ever wants to have to deal with. And so I will ask our entire community and our entire country to do whatever we can to make sure that no public official ever has to stand in this position again. And now I'll invite the county executive to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, our community is reeling from the heartbreaking and senseless tragedies at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison. As a mom who received a text from her son at a high school here in the city of Madison wondering if he was safe, I can tell you, this hits you in the gut. Our community is better than this. Our country is better than this. It cannot continue. My heart goes out to the victims and their families and the students and the educators, and the list goes on and on. Every one of us is affected by this unimaginable and unacceptable violence that has hit our community today. Dane County stands united in grief with the Abundant Life Christian School community. The Sheriff's Department, the Department of Emergency Management, Department of Human Services have all been on the front lines. My phone has been ringing from people across our state and our nation asking what it is that they can do to help our community. And right now, it is our time to be committed to supporting this school, these students, and these families, and our first responders who went into that building during this devastating time. We must work closely with our law enforcement officers and first responders, mental health professionals, community leaders, and policymakers to ensure that we are taking care of one another. No community should ever have to endure such a tragedy. And my administration is going to do everything that it can to provide assistance to those who have experienced this devastating loss, and also do everything that we can to prevent such tragedy from occurring. To all of those who are grieving in our community, please know that you're not alone. Dane County stands with you. We're here to support you in any way possible. Please reach out and ask for help. The governor's office, as well as the mayor's office, and I will continue to update the public as we learn more. But please understand, there are many things that we cannot share with you right now. This is an active investigation. This is an active case. The SSM Health Clinic near the intersection of Buckeye Road and Stoughton Road is the reunification center. I know that that has been out, but we need to make sure that folks know where it is that they can go to be reunited with their children. Again, in the coming days, we are going to make sure that we are supporting those that have been most impacted by this. But folks, reach out, ask for help. This does not need to be the reality of our community. Thank you.
All right, we'll start over here with questions. Just raise your hands.
How did this unfold? Give us a bit of a timeline on how your officers got into the building.
Sure. We received a call at approximately 10:57 a.m. Someone from the school called 911 to report that there was an active shooter. That means something different to us, obviously. There's different protocols that go out, tone alerts even, so that even if officers are busy doing other things, they respond. One of the things that I do want to note is that our training center is about 3 miles from there. We have special event team medics, those that work with the fire department, responded to this particular scene from their training day. So what began as a training day became an actual day. And so that's how this call originally came in.
Nicholas, did you have a question?
What can you tell us, if anything, more about this shooter and what their motivations were, or have you made contact with their family members? Anything updated on that?
Sure. There's nothing new that I can tell you about the shooter at this time. Again, as difficult as today is, that's still someone's child that's gone. That's still someone that has to deal with what happened today. And so we want to make sure that we can ensure as much cooperation as we can. You asked me about why, as I stated before. I don't know why. And I felt like if we did know why, we could stop these things from happening. But what I will tell you is, as soon as we are done with the investigation, any information that we uncover that will not compromise the safety of anyone involved or compromise the confidentiality of any of these children that are involved, we'll tell you. I just ask for your patience.
All right, go over there. Sorry, go right ahead.
Chief, what kind of gun was used today?
We know it was a handgun. We know a handgun was recovered.
All right, sit down right there.
Was the shooting confined to one classroom, or did it spread out?
We know it was confined to one space. I do not know if it was a classroom or a hallway. One of the things that we've gotten very good at, certainly different from in my day, is that if you do not need to be in a crime scene, you do not need to go to a crime scene. And so the crime scene and those persons who were involved, they have that crime scene locked down. I did not go or enter into that crime scene. But if you can imagine, most schools, the students go together, but they are segregated. So on each different floor, in each different group. And so there's no evidence that anyone else was injured that was not in that age group.
Danielle?
What can you say at this time about how school staff responded when the shooting started?
I cannot speak to how the school staff responded. We did have injuries, but it could have always, of course, had additional injuries. I do not know what the school's protocols are. Again, this is a private Christian school. I know that we have a very good rapport with MMSD, Madison Metropolitan Schools, public schools. So we have done trainings for them before, but I would assume that most of the teachers have the same or some similar type of training as a part of their certification.
There's conflicting reports online about how many students are enrolled at the school. Can you confirm approximately how many students attend?
I do not know how many students attend the school, but their website says that they serve about 200 families.
Right in the back, white.
What kind of support systems are going to be made available to people who are affected by this?
That's a good question. As you heard from our mayor and our county exec, we have services within our government that will be made available to them. I have a lot of confidence that they're going to follow through on that, and we'll make sure that that persons who need to. Do you guys want to speak to that?
So, Dane County Human Services, as well as the Red Cross and other consolidated agencies, are already on scene. And we will continue to be on scene, and those resources will be bolstered. Again, please reach out. You are not alone. We are going to navigate this together, and there are people who are affected by this trauma who are not in the reunification center or at the school. We need folks to be reaching out because we do have resources available.
Did you know if Abundant Christian Life School, did they have a school resource officer employed?
It's not my knowledge that they had a school resource officer. That if they did, it would be a police officer, and I know where they all are, and they're not in the schools right now.
15 in the back there.
So in terms of witnesses that you mentioned about investigation, what is that looking like, and how many witnesses are you guys keeping with?
Sure. So the detectives will talk to anyone who may have seen this particular event unfold, anyone that may have been unfortunate to hear something. They will be talking to them. It's my understanding that that's in process now, and everyone is cooperating fully. That will give us an idea of not only what unfolded, but it could answer the question to motivation, because again, the students who unfortunately had to witness this. But that's not something that we want to rush. We're not going to interrogate students. We're going to give them an opportunity to come in and speak to what they may have saw when they feel ready, which is why some of these questions can't be answered right now.
All right, Spectrum Room.
How do you reassure the community that it's still okay to go back to school? I mean, everybody's got kids, and I think, maybe it happened at this school, but there's everybody that's got a kid anywhere like this in county. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, I think you're asking me, how can I say 100% that no child will ever be harmed in school? I can't. No police chief can. But all I can tell you is that we have systems in place so that if something happens, we can respond like we did today. I can tell you that our mayor and our county exec has committed resources to not only public health, but also mental health. I can tell you that every teacher that I've ever had contact with at MMSD cares deeply about their students. Every staff member, I talk to staff members all the time who tell me things that are going on in the schools and want to do whatever they can, even if it's under anonymity, to let me know that they want to have a safe school. So my reassurance to the public is that if you see something, say something. If you know someone who may be going through a difficult time, please reach out to someone. And I think what I can do is make sure that our police department is transparent and open and honest and inviting for people to call and give information. I think MMSD does an excellent job of that. And the same thing can be said for any other private school. If you want to give information or you need someone to talk to, I can promise you we'll have someone there to get that information.
All right, then. Yeah.
Understanding that this is a private school you may not be as familiar with, what can you tell us about some of the physical measures that are in place in this school, whether it's metal detectors, secure entryway, cameras, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never been in this school, unfortunately. I'm not aware that there were metal detectors in the school. That's something that we can certainly look at. Most schools have some form of surveillance or public space cameras, but that will be, of course, part of the investigation process.
Scott?
Chief, can you clarify? You said 7 were injured, but 6 were hospitalized. Does that mean one's been treated at least? And secondly, is the shooter's family cooperating with the investigation?
Yeah, so it's 2 questions, but let me try to handle the first one. So I'm trying to go back to my notes. So we do know that one person was pronounced at the scene. And so that may be the seventh person. But we can get you all that information just when we're done. I'll have my PIO give that to you so you can report it accurately. And what was your second question?
Is the shooter's family cooperating?
At this time, yes.
Right there.
So you have made contact with the shooter's family?
We have.
And what were the steps taken to do that?
It's through the investigative process, okay?
Laura?
Yeah.
Is the shooter's home being searched? We've got some information about that is ongoing.
Yes, obviously, once we have identified, we have initiated a search, but we think that search is either ongoing now or that search may. It's about the safety of everyone. This is going to be a long day for the Madison Police Department. We just want some of your patience.
Had the school had any prior threats? And then just, jumping off of that, do you know if the shooter had any prior contact with law enforcement?
We do not know that the shooter had any prior contact with law enforcement, but I did do a check of the school. There were some calls, but they were like 911 hang-ups. Things of that nature. There was nothing that suggested that the school was a place that violence would occur.
Chief, I know that you mentioned that the shooter died of a self-inflicted gun wound. Did that happen before officers arrived at the school or when the shooter saw officers coming into the school?
Yeah, so let me say that the cause and manner in which the shooter died will be determined by the inmate. But what I can tell you is the shooter was dead upon our arrival, police department arrival. And no officers fired their weapons. Okay.
Lucas?
What are these search warrants you're executing, or are they at the residence on like a device the shooter had?
What do you? I'm sorry.
The extent of the search warrant.
Yeah. So the extent of the search warrant is to be able to go in a place that we don't have permission to be in, and make sure that everyone is okay. And then if there's any evidence that we think we need to collect, we could only do that with the use of a search warrant. And so, again, we have to determine if there is evidence that we will need. Everyone wants to know what led up to this. Are there any additional threats to public safety? Is this person or was this person by themselves? There are a lot of questions that we want to answer, but we have to answer the safety questions first, and then we'll move on to some of the more investigatory questions.
Are you in possession of any of the shooter's devices?
I am not, no.
I'm wondering about metal detectors. You mentioned in the first meeting that you were not a fan, and that this school probably doesn't have them. And do you know other schools that do? Do you think that that's something we should start talking about, metal detectors in schools?
I guess the question is, would you want your child to go to a school with or without metal detectors?
I can't answer that.
I can't.
Right now in a school without them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea is to create the safest environment that we can without metal detectors. That is my answer.
In the back,
Chief, this was a shooting at a Christian school right before the Christmas holiday. Can you address the impact of that? And is the Christmas holiday at all, in your belief, related to as a motivation for the shooting?
Yeah, so to the question of motivation, we don't know why, but to the question of so close to Christmas, we have a lot of people going to be impacted. If it's a Christian school, then obviously our holidays, our Christian holidays are very important to the students, very important. It's a time for family. Students probably getting ready to go out on break. And now the break will be a little less about celebrating Christmas than more about celebrating perhaps friends and loved ones and staff members who perhaps lost their life. That's why I'm asking everyone to, of course, keep Abundant Life Christian School in your thoughts and in your prayers, and we'll get a couple more, okay?
Okay, real quick, Phoebe.
So it's a private school that takes public money through the voucher system. So what has this revealed about maybe gaps in security or training for staff? Is that something you're thinking about whether schools that are private that take public money need to be, kind of on par with public schools when it comes to safety?
Well, what I'm telling you is that in 1997, I began my professional career as a public school teacher. I taught history for 4 years before becoming a police officer. So I did not get far enough to take courses in administration and budgeting of schools. I don't know what governs private schools, if they receive money, where that comes from. That would probably be a question that you would probably need to ask someone who's more intimately involved in the school system and what their requirements are if they do receive that. But you could probably compare what has happened or what goes on, their security measures, with the security measures of any school in MMSD, and then that may give you your answer. That's a very...
Just one very quick follow-up. As you know, there has been some criticism to other law departments in their response to these school shooting incidents, particularly of Uvalde. How did that inform your game plan today, and how quickly were your officers able to get into the school? What were they told to do?
Sure. We train on this, as I spoke about earlier. When officers arrive on the scene, they immediately go in, which we did in this case, stop the threat, stop the killing, find the killer. That's how we train, and that's exactly what we did today. There's no waiting. There's no coordination of who's in charge. Everyone knows exactly what to do. I spoke about this earlier. We train on this constantly. Our commanders, including the fire chief and I, was in a commander's training less than 2 weeks ago, going over this exact same scenario for another fictional location. And so all of that came into play today, and our officers performed extremely well based on their training and based on the expectations that they know exactly what to do. Stop the threat, stop the killing, find the threat.
All right, props for the follow-up. Can we just do one more?
Hold
on, right here.
Thank you all. I think the questions have been asked, and we're straying a little far from what's most important at this point in time, and that is the victims and their families. I have 3 things to add. First of all, there is a lot that our community can and will do in the coming days to support the victims and their families, and we will have more information at future briefings. If anyone, and I would urge you all to include this in your stories, if anyone needs mental health support as a result of this incident and the coverage of it, I encourage them to reach out to 988 by phone or text and to get the mental health support that they need. It is incredibly important that we take care of our community in this very difficult time. We all have a role in preventing gun violence. Our entire community needs to be part of the solution here. There are many things that we can do, and we can have those conversations in coming days. But first and foremost, what needs to be the priority for all of us is supporting our young people. And that is where our community's attention needs to turn at this point in time. The police department, the fire department, the city, the county will share additional information about the investigation as it becomes available. But I urge you all to help our community find resources to support their mental health and to find resources to support the victims and families at this time. Thank you all.
Where can people go to see your updates? What can you tell them to
It will be at cityofmadison.com. Me, Stephanie, and Cynthia will stick around and answer any other questions, but that's all.
Let me say just before I go, because the mayor mentioned that this was a whole of government response. It certainly was, and there's so many people that we want to thank. We cannot thank everyone, but it's also a whole of law enforcement response. Even though we are in different agencies, we all have the same training. And so I want to thank our partners with the FBI who are here with me today, partners with the ATF, Dane County Emergency Management. Of course, we already talked about our fire department. We've got calls from the Attorney General of the United States, Wisconsin State Patrol, our governor's office, State Patrol, Monona, as well as our sheriff's office. I know I may have left someone out, but thank you for how you responded, professionally, quickly, and according to the way that we all train, and it all came together to ensure that no other persons were hurt. Thank you.
Chief, could you just say what time you guys made entry? I just want to nail that detail down.
10:57.
But that's the time you made
All right, in 1 minute? We've been listening to an update from law enforcement in Madison, Wisconsin after the shooting at Abundant Life Christian School there in Madison. Police Chief Sean Barnes saying that 3 people are dead, including the shooter, a teenager. 2 of the victims, 1 a teenager, 1 a teenage student. At least 6 others are injured. 2 of those students in critical condition, 4 non-life-threatening. Again, at least 3 people dead, 6 others injured after this horrific shooting at a school, grades K through 12 in Madison, Wisconsin. I want to bring in ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky, who has been tracking this for us. Aaron, what do we know now about the timeline of this shooting and anything about the investigation?
Well, the first call came in at 10:57 a.m. Central Time in Madison, Wisconsin for an active shooter at the Abundant Life Christian School. Elizabeth, the authorities said it was over by the time they got there. They found the shooter, described as a teenage student of the school, dead, apparently of a self-inflicted gunshot. The age and gender of the student were not revealed. The police withholding that information for now. A teacher's dead. A teenage student is dead. We don't know whether this the shooter, who's also a teenager, what the age is. Is it an older teen, a younger teen? They didn't make that clear. And the police said they do not at this point know the motive, but they do undoubtedly know who they're dealing with. And you heard the police chief suggest that they are trying to talk to the family of the shooter, who was a student at the school.
ABC News Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas also tracking this for us. Pierre, the law enforcement saying there is no threat at this time, but also saying commanders had just completed a training related to school shootings, practicing for this a couple of weeks ago.
Indeed, because these shootings have become routine in this country, I was struck by the fact that the chief said that they had just completed training, that this is something that they trained for. And the key thing he emphasized is they trained to go in immediately to confront the shooter, to end whatever violence is taking place. But obviously just a horrendous situation with a teacher and a teenage student shot and killed. The shooter is a teenager. Also, he mentioned, we should add, that 2 students are still in critical condition with life-threatening injuries. He also emphasized that there were 4 other students that have non-life-threatening injuries. We don't know if those students were shot as well. But again, this has gotten the attention of the entire federal government. President Biden noted that he was paying attention and offering support. You just heard the police chief state that the Attorney General Merrick Garland had reached out to them. FBI and ATF are providing support as needed to the local authorities. But clearly, this is something that local communities have to prepare for. But you saw each and every one of those government officials talk about what a sad day this is, because in this country, as I said, this is routine. Last year, there were 656 mass shootings. That's where 4 or more people are injured in these kind of events. This year, we're looking at 486 mass shootings to date. So the numbers have improved somewhat this year compared to last year as a part of an overall downward trend in gun violence and other violence. But clearly this is something that plagues the country in an ongoing and chronic way.
A tragic reality. Let's also bring in ABC News contributor, former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Brad, we heard law enforcement say that the shooter's family is cooperating at this time. They have not yet released who that shooter is. What can you tell us about where the investigation goes from here? We do know that the shooter is also dead.
So the clear key is, what is the motive? And I think we can partly guess maybe what that is. This is some sort of revenge on this teenage shooter that either went to school there or currently goes to school there. You know, shooters go into schools like this because it's all about revenge, that they want to pay back to teachers, students, whomever it might be. Because of the youth of this shooter, the parents obviously are a critical interview. Most of the time in shootings like this, assuming he's a young teenager, the weapons come from home. And so we'll see, obviously, if that's the case. But the interview with the parents of the following, did the firearm come from home? How did he have access to the firearm? And what have they noticed in any change in him in any given period of recent times?
ABC News' Melissa Adan, you're also tracking this for us. Melissa, what do we know from law enforcement about where this happened at the school? The possible piecing together of exactly how the shooter got in and what happened when he was in the school.
Exactly, Elizabeth. So frightening, right? When all of those people we've been hearing from, those witnesses that got word, they said they live around this neighborhood. Obviously, they're describing it very peaceful, quiet. And it is the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. It is a K through 12. We're told a large campus, however, spanning from an area where about 28 acres. It has a pre-K, a local church there on the grounds. But in it, it's a relatively small school, about 390 students. Now, what we learned so far from police is they're believing that suspect is a student. He was a student. They did not give if it was a female student, the age, the male student, any other IDs for it, but that student was able to access the school grounds. Now, then that's when that shooting occurred. And then again, it was a mix. We're talked about either teachers and also students that were impacted about those injuries. But what we know about this Christian school, again, K through 12, in a relatively, what we're told, safe area. Some of the neighbors in the area were just describing just that they had never seen this amount of police lights, of ambulance ever in their lifetime. And it was coming up right in their neighborhood. So it was an incredibly alarming situation. Now, the school sending out a message, of course, asking the community there to pray for the victims and for all impacted. And Elizabeth, of course, the mayor also really highlighting and sharing how incredibly sad she says this is for their community, sharing and stressing the importance of mental health, not just for them in their community, but she says for everyone, very poignantly saying during her press conference, stressing how so many of us can help put a stop to mental health stresses or put attention to this and then seek action, of course, when it comes to gun violence. So definitely a lot of important topics there that are being discussed. But again, that distinction, Elizabeth, that this school was a private Christian school, not affiliated with the Madison School district there, but the police chief himself even sharing that he was a former teacher in the community and also sharing details about not knowing the staffing as far as were there any police officers that were there. There weren't any school resource officers. Those are things they're all looking into. And of course, questions are going to come up moving forward, right, Elizabeth? So many schools, unfortunately, now having to make sure they have all of these plans in place.
A day of mourning, as the mayor said. Pierre Thomas, I want to go back to you. Talk to us about the focus of the investigation in the immediate aftermath of this shooting. What does that look like?
Given that they know that this is a student, the killer is a student from this particular school, I think that is the beginning of where the investigation needs to focus. You heard the police chief talk about the fact that search warrants are being executed at that child's home. So I think one of the key things that they will look for is, were there any missed signals, warning signs? How did the child get access to the guns? As are the primary things they need to know. Also, they want to make sure that that child, that teenager, did not have any kind of support, and they need to make sure that no one knew about it and did not contact authorities. And the gun, and also, Elizabeth, I should also add that the ATF will be involved in doing a trace on the weapon to try to find out precisely when it was purchased.
That was my next question, actually, Pierre. Do we know anything about the weapon, the type of gun? Walk us through anything that they've told us at this point from the briefing just now.
They have identified the weapon as a handgun, not an assault-style rifle, which is what we see in so many of these mass shootings. But we know from past mass shootings like Virginia Tech that a handgun shot at close range is lethal. And I think the one good news that we had today is that the initial reports about the number of those killed was down, was reduced to a total of 3. And again, everyone's praying that no one else succumbs to their injuries.
Absolutely, prayers there. Brad Garrett, talk to us a bit about the response from law enforcement here. given that, you know, we saw a higher number at first, now, as we know, 3 people dead, including the shooter, though 6 others injured and 2 of them in critical condition. A quick response, it appears, from law enforcement in reaction to this.
And that's really the key to keep down the number of people shot and killed. Most mass shootings occur under 5 minutes. I'm sure this one was probably maybe even further down than that, only because we don't know where he was shooting, but if he walked into a classroom, basically, or sadly, you can shoot a lot of people in just a few seconds. And then apparently the shooter took his own life. But the idea that the Madison police probably were within that school within short minutes after they got the word that there was an active shooter probably saved lives. You know, whether the shooter heard them coming or not, or just believed that they would be coming soon, was apparently enough for him to stop.
Melissa, Don, we know two of the victims, a teacher and a teenage student. What else can you tell us about anything about their identities at this point of those victims?
Yes, Elizabeth, so it does appear to be a mix of students and teachers among those injured, as well as, unfortunately, was a student and teacher that were killed. And look, this is what we just had heard from the Madison Police Department, right? That teacher and teenage student killed, but we're at least looking at 7 others injured, and then even them highlighting these are the physical injuries. Of course, this is so traumatic, right? So many of these students and teachers that were on campus are just going to be traumatized by this event. But so far, from those 2 students that are in critical condition, those in the hospital, they're considered life-threatening injuries. Then we've been told that there are these other 4 students. They're at another area hospital. Those students have non-life-threatening injuries. And of course, Elizabeth, for as long as I've been covering some of these awful events and these school shootings, unfortunately, these situations can change, and it ranges so much about when you're talking about what is a critical injury to even a slight injury. It is a long road ahead for all of these students and teachers that have been impacted, because again, when we just report about what is the physical injuries, we know that this is such a traumatic experience, and that was something that the mayor, again, earlier was highlighting, Elizabeth.
Indeed, one that will stay for a long time. Melissa Adon, Pierre Thomas, Brad Garrett, thank you all so much. Coming up, we're going to turn to President-elect Donald Trump, speaking in a wide-ranging news conference for the first time since Election Day. What he said about his Health and Human Services Secretary nominee, who is on Capitol Hill today.
What the world needs now is love. Sweet love is the only thing that there's just to love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Lemonade Renter's Insurance covers your home putting green, dual suspension aluminum frame mountain bike, robot vacuum, and the laptop you impulse buy stuff with at 3 in the morning.
Floor clean, floor clean.
Protect a lot for not a lot of money. Get Lemonade Renter's Insurance and save even more when you bundle with pet insurance at lemonade.com.
Floor clean, floor clean, floor clean.
Oh man, nice place. Man, is it cold in here?
Yeah, our heat is out.
Oh man, I feel ya. Mine's been out for weeks. Weeks. Anyway, what are we fixing?
Your home's too important to trust to just anyone. With more than 100 years in business and thousands of 5-star reviews, you can trust Deljo Heating and Cooling to fix it right and for a fair price. That's the Deljo difference. Call today and get the $4,000 off of qualifying systems. Visit DeljoHeating.com.
A good deal shouldn't make you choose. That's why Subway just dropped the price on all their subs. 20% off any sub, any size.
Wait, Subway did what? 20% off any sub, any size?
Yep. For a limited time, get 20% off any footlong or 20% off any 6-inch when you order in the app. Get 20% off your favorite sub at Subway while the deal is still on. And join MVP Rewards for even more great deals.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration is just over a month away, and today, for the first time since the election, Trump took questions from the press in a wide-ranging news conference at Mar-a-Lago. The 90-minute event kicking off with Trump announcing a new $100 billion investment in the U.S. from Japanese telecommunications company SoftBank. Trump then took questions on the war in the Middle East, presidential pardons, drones, and the effectiveness of vaccines. His nominee to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is on Capitol Hill this week. Our Selena Wang asked Trump about RFK Jr.'s personal lawyer petitioning the FDA to revoke approval of the polio vaccine.
Thanks, President Trump. What about the polio vaccine?
Well, I'm a big believer in it, and I think everything should be looked at, but I'm a big believer in the polio vaccine.
Do you think schools should mandate vaccines? Do you think schools should mandate vaccines?
I don't like mandates. I'm not a big mandate person.
Let's go to ABC News senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, who's live in Palm Beach, Florida, near Mar-a-Lago, along with ABC News' Alex Boucher, live on Capitol Hill for us. So, Selena, you heard that exchange you had there with the president-elect on vaccines. You talked to him about some other issues as well.
Yeah, Donald Trump ended up taking questions for more than an hour. So in addition to vaccines, I was able to ask him questions on foreign policy as well. I asked him about that invitation he sent to Chinese leader Xi Jinping to attend the inauguration. This was an unusual move, and no foreign head of state has ever attended a U.S. presidential inauguration in modern history. We were told from sources that Xi Jinping is not expected to come. Donald Trump told me that he hadn't heard from Chinese leader Xi Jinping one way or another, but he said that he would love for Xi Jinping to come if he can. He also called the Chinese leader a friend. In addition, I also asked the president-elect whether or not he would ask Putin to hand over Bashar al-Assad, the ousted Syrian leader who fled to Russia. He told me that he hadn't thought about it. He also added that it's time to move on with our lives in response to that question. Now, all of this also comes as a source has just told me that Donald Trump today is meeting with the CEO of TikTok. Donald Trump has said before that he wants to save the Chinese app. And in the press conference today, Trump said that he has a soft spot for TikTok, adding that it helped him gain the youth vote during the election.
No doubt about that. And what he can do to save TikTok, we're still waiting for those answers. Alex, we know RFK Jr. there on Capitol Hill today, a marathon week of meetings with 24 senators ahead. What are you hearing about how these meetings are going so far?
Well, Elizabeth, he has 4 meetings back to back today. I'm looking at the clock right now. He should be just about ready to enter that second meeting with Senator Ron Johnson, wrapping up a meeting with Senator Rick Scott of Florida. But I will say that you saw that video of the crush of reporters surrounding him as he entered the Capitol today. The chief question there is, does he support the polio vaccine? That was something that was asked by our colleague, Mary Bruce, to RFK Jr. as he entered, and he did say, it was hard to hear, but he did say, I'm all for the polio vaccine, which echoes what we heard from Trump today at that wide-ranging press conference. It's clear that they're trying to all get on the same page to assuage some of those questions from senators this week.
Full-on attempt to court those senators. Alex Boucher and Selena Wang, thank you both so much. The news never stops. You can find us anywhere you stream live. And if you're on the go, we are on the ABC News app and abcnews.com too. I'm Elizabeth Schulze. Thanks so much for streaming with us. A lot more news coming up next.
At Total Wireless, we got your back every day. Others, not so much. Just look at the facts. We run on the network with America's fastest 5G speeds for as low as $25 a month. They don't. Back them. We locked your price for 5 years. Not them. Back them. And to top it all off, we'll give you up to 4 free 5G phones. So fact those guys, right? We've got you covered. Get the facts. Then switch to Total Wireless.
When I was younger, my calling was to play football. But as I grew older, I realized life isn't about how many people you can knock down. It's about how many people you can lift up. At Ram, our calling is to build game-changing trucks. So when you find your calling, nothing can stop you from answering it.
During the Ram Wrap Up the Year sales event, get $5,000 combined cash allowance. Plus, current Ford brand owners or lessees get $2,000 bonus cash allowance on the purchase of most 2025 Ram 1500 trucks.
Beautiful.
Christmas?
You got any Christmas music?
Eggnog, snowmen, caroling, we're gonna do it all.
Whoops.
Switch to Square and join over 4 million businesses worldwide. Scheduling is easy with Square appointments. Clients can book online 24/7. Take payments at your station or the front desk to offer seamless checkouts. Keep track of commissions and split tips with just a few clicks. Gain time and peace of mind with beauty tools that bring everything together. Switch to Square today at square.com.
Reporting in the aftermath of Hurricane Milton in Fort Pierce, Florida, I'm Eva Pilgrim. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
I'm Elizabeth Schulze in Washington. We begin with breaking news now on ABC News Live. That deadly shooting at a private Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin. Police say that 2 people are dead, as well as the shooter, who they say was a juvenile. Several other people are wounded. Happened earlier today at the Abundant Life Christian School, which teaches grades K through 12. Madison's police chief calling today a sad day, not just for the city, but for the entire country.
I think we can all agree that enough is enough. And we have to come together to do everything we can to support our students, to prevent press conferences like these from happening again and again and again.
The police chief says officers discovered the shooter dead inside the building. ABC News' Melissa Adon has been tracking the latest for us, along with ABC News law enforcement and contributor and former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Thank you both so much for being here. Melissa, talk to us about what we know now from law enforcement. We just got an update about the timeline for this shooting and how this investigation is going.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. So we're getting a lot of new details from when this happened this morning at this private Christian school. Now, Madison police say that they found the suspected shooter, a juvenile, dead inside the school. And then just moments ago, they confirmed that the shooter was a teenage student at Abundant Life Christian School. They're not going into further details or IDing that suspect, but they did say the suspect had a handgun. And now how the handgun got onto campus, that, of course, is now being part of this investigation. Even the Madison police chief was asked this during one of today's newsers, that he's just unsure if the school even had metal detectors. But even the police chief stressing a school shouldn't have to worry about metal detectors, saying that a school should be a safe space. Nonetheless, the suspect was able to get a gun into the school, and that is when calls went out. Several 911 calls were received, and it was a flood, a storm of police vehicles, of ambulances, when they had their active shooter threat ongoing, until the moments that they were able to get those police and law enforcement onto the campus, Elizabeth. And that was a quick response, even something the police chief said they had just done 2 weeks ago, an actual trial. They had just been practicing of how to do these active shooter responses. And well, that was put right into effect today, Elizabeth.
Just such a sign of the times that they had been doing that practice. Melissa, what do we know about the victims as of now?
Absolutely. So we're learning that the victims appear to be a mix of students and teachers. So far, we were told by Madison police that the 2 that were killed were a teacher and a teenage student. Now, we've learned at least 7 others were physically injured. We've been told that 2 students are now in critical condition. They're in the hospital, and they have injuries that are considered life-threatening. And then there will be about 4 students that are at another area hospital. They have non-life-threatening injuries, but of course, this is something we're going to follow, because officials have been stressing these are just the physical injuries that we know about. This is such a traumatic experience. Just moments ago, the mayor speaking about this issue and just about how traumatic all of this has been. Take a listen.
We need to do better in our country and our community to prevent gun violence. And I hoped that this day would never come in Madison. It is not something that any mayor, any fire chief, any police chief, any person in public office ever wants to have to deal with.
But again, Elizabeth, all this happening inside Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. It is a K-12 school, and it's relatively small, about 390 students. Now, the school might be in a large campus that it shares with a city church and a pre-K. However, very intimate class size settings. Now, the school sending out a message asking the community to pray for the victims and, of course, all of those impacted. Elizabeth?
Of course. Brad, give us your take on where this investigation goes from here, how they're trying to piece together exactly how this happened.
So I think the real key is going to be his home life, his parents. You mentioned earlier that they're doing a search warrant at the house. They're interviewing the parents. The parents are cooperating. They're going to be the key probably as to where the gun came from, his access to the gun, etc. They also can give you some insight, or investigators some insight into what's going on with this kid. What has he said about school? Has he been bullied at school? What has he written in social media or told his parents about what's going on? Has there been a behavioral change in him, or he's thinking sort of dark, stormy thoughts, changes his dress, changes his appearance? All those things sort of go together, or can be indicators, if maybe not to become a school shooter, but certainly indicators that he's troubled in some way and needed help. So these are all keys. It becomes a real gray area sometimes when trying to assess whether a kid is going to move from just being dark and stormy or is actually going to go pick up a gun and harm somebody. And so we'll see. But all of that is extremely important. The other is going to be, how did they get the gun into the school? When I hear that the church is attached to the school, which is more than fine, I've done enough security audits at schools that are attached to churches. And one of the failings I always come up with is it's easy to get through the church some way into the school where you don't have to deal with any sort of security or metal detectors, if in fact they have either. So that's something the school is going to have to look at as to how he actually got in there with that weapon.
Right, and when you think about the response from law enforcement, Brad, does it seem that they were quickly prepared, that they got on the scene as quickly as necessary to prevent this from becoming even more of a tragedy than it already is?
No doubt that time means everything. The longer it takes, the more potential casualties and children injured that you have. So, you know, I can't say more about the quick response, and I'm sure that it very likely saved lives. Whether the shooter, who apparently shot himself, which is also quite common, knew that they were coming or he heard them coming, one or the other, and ended his own life before shooting anyone else.
Piecing this together, Melissa and Brad Garrett, thank you both so much. Let's turn to President-elect Donald Trump. Speaking to reporters for the first time in a wide-ranging news conference today since the election, he talked to the press about everything from, in a 90-minute remarks, everything from this $100 billion investment in the U.S. from Japanese telecommunications company, then talking about the war in the Middle East, presidential pardons and drones, the effectiveness of vaccines. His nominee to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., was on Capitol Hill today. Our Selena Wang asked Trump about RFK Jr.'s personal lawyer petitioning the FDA to revoke approval of the polio vaccine.
Thanks for President Trump. What about the polio vaccine?
Well, I'm a big believer in it, and I think everything should be looked at, but I'm a big believer in the polio vaccine.
Do you think schools should mandate vaccines? Do you think schools should mandate vaccines?
I don't like mandates. I'm not a big mandate person.
Alex Pritchett live on Capitol Hill for more. Alex, RFK Jr. there on the Hill today. This is a marathon week of meetings, more than 24 senators. What do we know about how these meetings are going so far and the receptiveness toward him?
Well, Elizabeth, I mean, he's just getting started. I'm looking at the clock right now, 4:30. He's just beginning that second meeting with Senator Ron Johnson. He wrapped up a meeting with Florida Senator Rick Scott earlier, and this is the second of 4 today. But on the way in, you saw RFK Jr. In that crush of reporters all asking questions. The chief among them are his views on vaccines, specifically the polio vaccine. And our team on the Senate side including our colleague Mary Bruce, got a chance to ask him a question about that. Take a listen.
Mr. Kennedy, do you believe in the polio vaccine? What do you say to Americans who are worried you're going to take away their vaccines, Mr. Kennedy?
Should the polio vaccine be revoked?
You're all for it?
What about the childhood vaccine?
Yeah, so it was a little hard to hear him there, but he did say, I'm all for the polio vaccine, really kind of doubling down on a message that we heard from President-elect Trump earlier today, talking about his advocacy for the polio vaccine. He referenced that he had a number of friends who had suffered from polio that got the vaccine. It was knocked out. It's also something that we've heard from the transition team, that RFK Jr. is a supporter of the polio vaccine, that he's fully vaxxed, save for the COVID-19 vaccine. But the reason that we're hearing all this messaging, Elizabeth, is because there was a little bit of a telegraph the end of last week by Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who is a polio survivor. He still suffers with some of the complications from that illness to this day. And regarding the questions around RFK Jr.'s support of the polio vaccine, McConnell had a pretty strongly worded response saying that any efforts to undermine public confidence in proven cures are not just uninformed, they're dangerous, and anyone seeking the Senate's consent to serve in this incoming administration would do well to steer clear of even the appearance of association with those such efforts. And so clearly this is an opportunity and an attempt by this incoming administration to change that narrative.
No doubt about that. Alex Prochet tracking it for us today on Capitol Hill. Thank you. Overseas, Israeli officials are expressing optimism about the prospect of a possible ceasefire deal in Gaza. The Israeli defense minister says he believes Israel and Hamas are closer to a deal now than they've been since that first very brief ceasefire back in November of last year. This comes amid a grim new milestone in Gaza. The death toll of Palestinians there has crossed 45,000, according to the Hamas-run Ministry of Health. More than half of those fatalities are believed to be women and children. In just the last 24 hours alone, more than 50 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza by IDF operations. At least 15 were killed after an Israeli airstrike hit a school in Khan Yunis near a hospital. ABC News' Patrick Reevell joins us now from London. Patrick, the death toll amounting to roughly 2% of Gaza's pre-war population of 2.3 million. Talk to us about what this humanitarian crisis looks like right now.
Hi, Elizabeth. Yeah, I mean, we've seen just in the past 24 hours over 50 Palestinians killed in Israeli operations in Gaza, according to the health ministry there. And as you say, we have now seen the death toll in Gaza pass 45,000, with over half of them, as you say, believed to be women and children. It also needs to be said that over 100,000 people have also been injured. Obviously, also enormous displacement. Virtually the entire population there has been displaced. We've been receiving footage today from the World Food Programme that has a team in northern Gaza and which has provided this footage to us. It shows just astonishing levels of destruction, really just breathtaking, you know, a sea of rubble. We also see people at bread lines and at food lines clamoring for basic food, begging for flour, begging for bread. And clearly, you know, just the situation in Gaza, catastrophic and getting worse. The WFP say that they're not getting anywhere near enough food into Gaza, saying that in part that's because of restrictions from Israel, and in part also that's compounded now by looting inside Gaza as the situation gets even more desperate there. They say that they lost dozens of trucks in an organized attack by looters there just recently.